I'm Jack Whitaker, and this is the NFL Game of the Week, the Eastern and Western Conference playoffs. The first part of our story tells how the West was won. From sunny California came the Los Angeles Rams, seeking revenge for an earlier defeat by their opponents today, the Minnesota Vikings. Led by swarthy Roman Gabriel and the fearsome foursome, Coach George Allen came north to Minnesota in hopes of fulfilling a season-long goal. Allen's counterpart, Bud Grant, also had a similar goal, and his hopes rested with the four Norsemen and a California-bred quarterback named Joe Kapp. Two teams with similar assets, similar styles, and similar goals. When an immovable object meets an irresistible force, something's got to give. And on this December 27th, 1969, the Purple Gang from the north would bring Roman's empire tumbling down in the Western Conference playoffs. As if in the heavyweight championship, both teams disdained a feeling-out period and came out slugging from the heels. They fought the first quarter to a standoff, although the Vikings suffered two early bad breaks, Bill Brown's fumble on the second play, and an offsides penalty that nullified a 60-yard touchdown by Carl Eller that followed Brown's fumble. After the penalty, Roman Gabriel led the Rams to the first score of the day, and his strategy was to go with the short game. This consisted of quick traps up the middle by rookie setback Larry Smith, number 38, and short flips to his receivers, such as number 14, Wendell Tucker. The strategy worked well on the hard-charging Viking line, and the Rams finally scored when Gabriel caught the Vikings' own secondary asleep on a rollout, spotting tight end Bob Klein in the open for a 7-0 lead, and the first touchdown scored against the Vikings in the first quarter this season. Minnesota equaled the Rams' long drive with one of their own to tie the score. However, Joe Kapp, unlike Roman Gabriel, came out winging. Figuring the Rams' secondary to be their weak link, Kapp surprised the Rams with heavy emphasis on passing, since he had beaten them 3 weeks before with his ground game. Stylistically, Kapp does everything wrong, but completes his passes anyway. His strategy was to roll out to his left, away from Deacon Jones and Merlin Olsen, and his target was usually Gene Washington, number 84, one of the great receivers of the game. Now, inside the 5, Dave Osborne dove over to tie the game. It was an impressive start for both teams. The Rams continued to run well on the heralded Purple People Eaters, as Smith and Willie Ellison followed superb line blocking for big gains. But this drive ended in a missed field goal as the second quarter began. The Rams completely dominated this quarter of play, shutting off every phase of the Viking offense while not allowing them to score at all. The key to their success was the containment of Kapp and the tight coverage on Gene Washington by cornerback Clancy Williams, number 24. Offensively, the Rams stuck with their short game, and Gabriel was not afraid to run when he had to, despite Minnesota's hard-hitting defense. In fact, this was one of the roughest hitting games ever seen, and on a very cold Minnesota day, it was a wonder the players were able to hold on to the ball at all. Gabriel converted 3 third-down situations in this drive with quick flips to set back Les Josephson, number 34. But on a 3rd and 6 at the Viking 18, he failed, as Carl Kozulski came up fast to deny the first down and force a field goal that put Los Angeles in front by 3. Then later in the quarter, Gabriel and his tight end Billy Truax would lengthen the Rams' lead to 10. Truax, number 87, was an integral part of the Ram game plan, and his diving catches led Los Angeles downfield as Gabriel was now 10 of 13. From the 2, a great play-action fake held the defense in, and Carl Eller failed to get to Gabriel. Truax beat his man, and his third catch of this drive put the Rams into a commanding lead. Gossett's extra point made it 17-7 at the half as the Rams took momentum and a 10-point lead into the locker room. A wise old man once said, a football game is 60 minutes long. The Rams were about to discover that the Purple Gang from Minnesota, unlike many other teams, refused to fold under a 10-point deficit. In fact, for the next 30 minutes, Minnesota's defense would more than vindicate their first half performance. They didn't change their strategy. They just kept hitting and hitting until Roman's empire truly began to fall. The 4 Norsemen, or front 4, Eller, Marshall, Page, and Larson, along with their linebackers in secondary, completely stifled the Rams' offense, shutting them out in the third quarter. Gabriel and the Rams were now going backwards, not forward. On offense, Joe Kapp was helped by his first big break, an interference penalty on cornerback Jim Nettles, number 19. From here, like a championship leader, he quickly capitalized on the break. A bomb to Washington and a penalty took the ball to the 6. Then the aggressive Viking quarterback, hardened by years of play in the rough Canadian League, ran right into the Rams' defense and almost went over. Osborne vaulted over for his second score, and it was now 17-14. The rest of the quarter saw Kapp move his team downfield again, only to throw up his first interception near the goal. However, the Rams could not convert it into points. A minute later, Kapp threw his second interception, and it looked like Los Angeles would now build on its 3-point lead. This the Rams did, but not as much as they would have liked. The rock-strong Gabriel challenged the Vikings himself and got a first down as the third quarter ended. There were now 15 minutes left. 15 minutes of confrontation between two grudgingly tough teams. Gabriel could not pick up a key first down due to the great effort by the 4 Norsemen, and the Rams had to settle for 3 in what would turn out to be an important 4 points the Rams would never see. Down by 6, Kapp stuck to his game plan, continuing to pass freely to his wide receivers, Washington, and number 80, John Henderson. Kapp's line was giving him superb protection, and once the fearsome foursome is negated, the Rams are a vulnerable team. Milt Sunday, number 64, led the way on this pass to Bill Brown that set up a 3rd and 1 on the Rams' 19. Then on a big play, Dave Osborne twisted and turned for the first down to keep the must drive going. The Vikings seemed to be playing on heart and guts alone now, as their rugged leader refused to be intimidated, a trademark that has made him a truly remarkable quarterback. When he finally took it over himself from the 2, Joe Kapp had put his team into the lead 21-20, and for the first time in the game, the Rams had their backs to the wall. Kapp's confidence is reflected in his walk to the bench as he gallantly counseled his purple gang to sock it to the good guys in the white suits. Carl Eller must have heard his plea. On the very next play from scrimmage, Eller beat his man to Gabriel and gave the Vikings a 3-point lead with a safety. It was the culmination of a super game for the All-Pro defensive end, and his teammates let him know it, while the man he beat, All-Pro tackle Bob Brown, number 76, dejectedly went to the bench. This play, perhaps the biggest of the game, deserves another look. Watch Eller at top left hand fight his way to Gabriel for the safety. With 8 minutes left, Minnesota now led 23-20. The Vikings couldn't move after the safety, but got another big break when Cap was rocked on 3rd down and fumbled, but his teammates recovered. Though a punt followed, the Rams would have to start their final drive from their own 15, not the Vikings' 40. So with 5 minutes left, the Viking defense dug in to preserve their precarious 3-point lead. But Gabriel led the Rams upfield, again using screens and hitch passes for short but certain gains, eating up the yards and the time. On a 4th down play, Truax made a clutch catch, and the Rams eventually moved to the Vikings' 44, needing only one more pass to get into field goal range to tie the game and send it into sudden death. There were 39 seconds left now, and even the Viking front line was playing cautious, watching for the screens and flares. This defensive strategy paid a huge dividend as Alan Page blocked and caught Gabriel's attempted pass. Page raced downfield and ended the imposing Ram threat, and with it, the game. A repeat of this game-ending play shows that the ball hit number 88, Page, in the chest, flew up, and took the proverbial lucky bounce right into his arms, as number 84, Jack Snow, watched what he knew was the Rams' last gasp for 1969. After only a decade of existence, the Minnesota Vikings were about to reach the highest plateau in their conference, something that has eluded the Rams for 15 years. Seconds later, a jubilant coach ran off the field to the cheers of his loyal fans. Bud Grant has seen his determined Central Division team put together 30 minutes of perfect football to hold off the tough Los Angeles Rams 23-20 in what was one of the cleanest, roughest, most exciting games of this or any other season. So the good guys in the white suits went back to Hollywood, proud but dejected, while the purple gang from Minnesota rode ever onward towards its goal, an NFL championship and a Super Bowl. This has been the story of how the West was won. In the Eastern Conference playoff, the Browns met the Cowboys, and over 69,000 chilled fans waited to see if the so-called Cleveland Jinx would prevail. The Cowboys and their coaches, who strongly felt that this was the finest Dallas team yet, were on record as being certain it wouldn't. But on a cold, wet, rainy day in the Cotton Bowl, they were proved wrong again. This onside kick in the 4th quarter vividly represents the misery that was Dallas's today. Even when they did things right, they turned out wrong. Cleveland was stopped in the first series of the game, and it looked like Dallas had a break when Don Cockcroft's punt went straight up in the air. But the ball hit Rayfield right, and Bob Matheson recovered for the Browns. It was Cleveland who had the big break, and it was all they needed. Bill Nelson promptly passed over the middle to Milt Morin to put the ball within running distance of the Dallas goal line. But to get there, Cleveland had to run against Dallas's doomsday defense, which prided itself in being the toughest unit in league history to run against. Only 3 touchdowns were scored against them on the ground all season long. Their aura of invincibility was quickly punctured when Bo Scott easily skirted left end for a Cleveland touchdown and a 7-0 lead for the Browns. Dallas was never the same. Cleveland completely dominated the ball game from then on. Calvin Hill was stopped cold by a ferocious front line, and when Dallas tried to pass, they found their receivers blanketed. Morton missed on his first 7 passes, and his favorite target, Lance Rensel, didn't catch a pass until the game was almost over. The reason was the clever Cleveland secondary, which disguised its coverage so well. A confused Morton couldn't tell which of his ends were being single or double covered. This total devastation of Dallas's complex offensive machine was Cleveland's answer to Tom Landry's tag of rubber band defense. The Cowboys' receivers continually came up empty. Meanwhile, in the first half, Bill Nelson and Paul Warfield successfully employed Blanton Collier's game plan of throwing medium-range passes. Nelson hit All-Pro Warfield on quick slices, despite the Cowboy tactic of switching Mel Renfro to cornerback in the obvious passing situations. But to Warfield, who totaled 8 catches for the day, it didn't matter if his defender was Renfro or rookie Otto Brown. He burned them both. Late in the first half, Morin took a Nelson pass off a play action to Kelly, and instead of running to daylight, preferred to run into someone. But despite such Neanderthal tactics, Cleveland had a first down on the Dallas 23. Nelson, who was thrown only once today, had plenty of time to thread the needle to Warfield between defenders Renfro and Brown. Leroy Kelly powered over left tackle for an apparent score. But illegal procedure was called, and instead of 6 points, the Browns had 6 yards to go for a touchdown. Again, with excellent protection, Nelson coolly passed to his tight end, Milt Morin, who beat Renfro in the end zone. Cleveland had refused to allow a setback to deter them, and they had their second score of the game with less than 2 minutes remaining in the half. But Cleveland wasn't finished. They forced Dallas to punt again, and with 28 seconds left, Nelson, having perhaps his finest game as a pro, fired to Warfield inside Cowboy territory. With just 19 seconds left, and Dallas knowing Nelson would try to get the ball in field goal position in the middle of the field, the Cleveland quarterback drilled a perfect pass over the middle to Bo Scott, who lost the ball, but after the whistle had blown. Nelson had now hit 15 of 22 passes. 5 seconds left. Don Cockcroft put the ball through from 22 yards out, and Cleveland led 17-0. The 10-point explosion within 2 minutes was important because it sent the Browns into their locker room rolling, the Cowboys into theirs reeling. Dallas had been held to the incredible total of 39 yards, but at the start of the second half, Morton threw with authority for the first time. It looked like Dallas might move. But again, the Cleveland defense made the big play when it was most needed. With 4 tacklers hanging all over him, Morton tried to get off a pass, and linebacker Jim Houston picked it off, and looking like the offensive end he was at Ohio State, tore 35 yards to the Dallas 19-yard line. The big play, once again, was made by the Browns. Then Nelson looked left, threw right, and Kelly took the swing pass and streaked to the 2-yard line. His running mate, Big Bo Scott, ripped in for his second touchdown, and the Browns had a commanding 24-0 advantage. It was obvious their halftime momentum had not dwindled. But Dallas was still alive. Morton was hit, but still got off a strong pass to his tight end, Pettis Norman, for the Cowboys' deepest penetration of the day. Dallas fans finally had something to yell about. A few plays later, despite a mix-up in the backfield, Craig Morton got a Dallas score to bring his team within 17 points. With an entire quarter remaining, the Cowboys were still very much in the game. Leroy Kelly ended whatever hope the Texans had. Nelson had anticipated the blitz and burned them with the draw, which went for 39 yards. The Cowboys had keyed on Kelly, but they couldn't contain him all day. As the fourth quarter began, Leroy Kelly went up the middle for the Browns' fourth touchdown and their third on the ground. Cleveland, in one game, equaled the total scored against the Doomsday defense by rushing in the previous 14 games. Whatever doubt remained regarding the outcome of the game vanished with startling suddenness when rookie Walt Sumner stepped in front of Walt Garrison and sprinted 89 yards down the sideline with the ball. Sumner, a season-long replacement for the Browns' fine injured cornerback Ben Davis, had been picked as the target in Dallas's game plan. But like so many other things for Dallas this day, the aerial attack on Sumner never came. The Cleveland Albatross was well and thriving in Dallas. The Browns, with the youngest team in their successful history, had routed what had been billed as one of the super squads in football. This earned them the privilege of meeting the powerful Minnesota Vikings in the NFL Championship in Minnesota on Sunday. An earlier confrontation of the two teams resulted in Cleveland's most embarrassing loss of the year, a 51-3 shellacking. But today, with Bill Nelson, the pass master of the air lanes, and the Browns' young defense rising to the occasion, it is not too difficult to envision a Cleveland championship and a trip to New Orleans for the Super Bowl.